Hello, welcome everybody. My name is Renata. I am your today's host, and today here present with me is my dear friend, a Purejoy Parenting founder, Leslie Potter. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, love.
Hi. For those who doesn't know you, but I think like now everyone must know you. You are a fervent advocate of leaving children alone, especially when it turns out their behavior. Like
Well, I
because
wouldn't say leaving them alone. I'd say come alongside them.
yes, not focus on their behavior. We so often, like so many of us, all of us, yeah, want to address their behavior and then find some tricks, like 1, 2, 3 steps. I should follow them, do this and that and that, and then miracle. It works. And uh, as long as I know you, you always were saying that that behavior isn't the way we should address parenting issues. We should do something else. Yeah. Could you
Yeah,
tell
well,
us more about about what we should do instead?
yeah, and what I had to do was go deeper. Like, why did I need my child to behave? That became the question.
Mm.
Like, she was just being who she was. She was expressing her upset if she slammed the door, if she rolled her eyes, or if she didn't get in the car seat. But why did I need her to behave in a certain way? And that became my deeper question. It was because I felt uncomfortable, because I felt judged. I felt uncomfortable, like I felt powerless. I felt helpless. So all these things were happening inside when she didn't reflect back to me what I thought the external was supposed to look at. So that was when I woke up and went on the discovery journey of, well, why do I want my daughter to be different so that I'm okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm the adult. Maybe I could work on being okay. So I could actually start to listen to my daughter's behavior. I could actually see it as an indicator that she was sharing her internal experience of our relationship. Because often her bad behavior, we call it, was because I was pushing, or I was pulling, or I was forcing, or I had an agenda. So when I started recognizing this and started listening, her behavior definitely shifted, but it didn't shift because I controlled it to make me happy. It shifted because I started meeting my daughter in ways that she needed to be met. I started listening. I stopped having an agenda. I stopped pushing and pulling. I started recognizing when she did open. I recognized when she did close, when she did get upset. So for me, the more I knew myself and my discomfort and could work with it, then, as I said, I was able to come alongside my daughter and really get to know the child that I was living with versus the child I wanted, so that I felt okay.
We all live in a very quick and fast and easy times where everything is just one click away. Like I could even decide not to go to the grocery store. I could order everything online. And what you are presenting here, it seems like a lot of work. I mean, I mean,
I felt different. I felt the work what was a lot of work was to try to control my daughter. Then we would have a big fight, and then I would yell at her, and then I would feel guilt, and then I would feel shame, and then I would beat myself up because I wanted to be a conscious mother. That took a lot of work to self-aggress, to try to get my world to look the way I wanted it to look. So for me, it became much easier, instead of trying to control this, to actually control this, which is the only thing that I really have self-control over. And so for me, it became easier. The harder part was surrendering my fear of what everybody else was going to think, because of course I got a lot of judgment. My fear that I was raising a child that was going to turn into a whatever, my future. I really had to be willing to not parent for an outcome. I really had to find, and the hard part was having an intimate relationship with myself, because I didn't really like what I always saw when I went inside, because she was reflecting, she was a location often of my negative parts that I don't want to look at. If I could just get rid of them by controlling them, I wouldn't have to look at them and offer them kindness. So it sounds hard. The hard part is actually being humble enough to actually turn back in and recognize that you're having a relationship with a pretty innocent child. They are not out to emotionally threaten us. That is not their agenda. They don't come in going, I'm going to push my parents' buttons, which we all think. We give them so much more power. They're just little innocent human beings expressing, when they don't like something, it comes out in behavior, or when they just don't have the regulatory system to sustain and repress like we learned to do.
We don't have it either. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
So when I got clear, it was about returning to my innocence, returning back to loving myself. Everything that I was trying to do as a parent, it was all conditioned. I learned it from my parents, even though I was trying to do the opposite because I didn't want to be my mom. Right? I know you have probably lots of people listening here, but it was actually the opposite. I wasn't really looking at the benefits and drawbacks of my childhood. I got a lot from my mom. I didn't get a lot from my mom also, but she wasn't the demon. I wasn't, I didn't have to hold her out because I could, as we say in the States, I was throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
I was throwing out all the things that I did get in my childhood because I just didn't want to be my mom. And so I wasn't a full, whole parent. I was one-sided. I only wanted to be peaceful. I only wanted to be nice. I only wanted to be loving. I only wanted to be all these things. And I had all these other sides. I'm nice and I'm mean. I'm happy and I'm sad. I'm good and I'm bad. I've got all of them. So until I could turn back in and start to love all of those, I couldn't really support my daughter in being a whole individual or expressing wholly.
How do you love bad in yourself? How do you love mean in yourself? How do you love screaming or yelling, or how do you manage to love that?
Well, first you understand it. When a child, let's say, is really disturbed inside, they didn't get the piece of candy. To us, but for a child, that might be life or death. They see that piece of candy and they think they're going to die if they don't get it because they thought they were. And then they're expressing that to you. They may express by hitting you. They may express by throwing the candy because it's so big in their little bodies. It's like the energy is so big. They think they're going to die. So they're trying to express it. And then someone calls them mean. Someone calls them aggressive. Someone calls them bad. So then that expression gets identified with, you're a mean person. You're a bad person if you express your truth, what's going on. And so we get attached to thinking when I act out, I'm a mean person. No, it's like I probably wasn't able to be with myself and stay with those big feelings of powerlessness and helplessness when my kid wouldn't get in the car seat. Most likely I was just overwhelmed. And so my feelings drove my behavior to yell at my kid. And then immediately this little conditioning comes in and says, you're mean. You're a bad person for doing that. And so I started taking that label off that I was mean or as bad. I did yell. I take responsibility for what I do, but I try to be kind to that person. I say, oh, honey, like, of course you yelled. You just got overwrought, just like I would with a little one now. So you wanted that candy. It was so hard. So I don't focus on the behavior that they hit me. I just go, oh, sweetheart, because I know my child doesn't just hit. No child just hits. So if I focus on the hitting, I'm seeing them as a hitter. No, I focus on, oh my gosh, honey, you wanted that so bad and you didn't get it. Come here. Let me be with you. So I focus on supporting the child and being able to regulate that intensity versus shaming them and telling them they're mean, they're rude, they're bad. So of course, then we're watching ourselves all the time, you know, our behavior, because we're so afraid to be mean or to be rude or to be bad. Well, then you've cut off a whole part of your expression.
Exactly. And I mean, we all have those, you know, thoughts about being a bad mom, being a bad person. And all those thoughts were so persistent. I mean, you know, you can't just shake them off. I mean, they come back. They stay, and you have plenty of evidence for that. Obviously, I'm a bad mom. Look, you know, I yelled, or only bad people do that, you know. How do you shake it off for good? I mean, not just, you know, for 5 minutes, but then it's gonna come back.
But why, you know, we say, well, what's your objection to feeling bad then? Because in Purejoy, we're always trying to be intimate with what is. We're not trying to get rid of something and shake something off forever. Because whatever arises deserves to be loved and to be offered kindness, right? So we say, well, I have an objection to feeling bad, or I have an objection to thinking bad thoughts. Then you're trying to get rid of part of yourself, right? So I recognized trying to get rid of part of myself never worked, because clearly I'm going to have those thoughts again. They're just thoughts. They just come and they go. They come and they go. So I recognized if I was willing to be intimate with when I felt bad or I thought I was bad, and really offer myself kindness and get intimate with that. Like, oh, you're feeling bad. Oh, honey, tell me about that. You know, what's going on? And I might hear myself say, well, I don't like when she does so and so. I always hear this young voice inside that starts telling me when I go, I want to hear. And then I'm offering kindness. That's the intimacy. I'm offering kindness to what is, versus trying to get an outcome of the future. If I can just get rid of this thought, I'll never be a bad mom again. Well, you never were. You just thought you were. So if the thought comes up, I'm bad, I go, oh, tell me about that. I talk to myself. I have a practice called the sacred seat. And then I often have the safe seat where I go and I listen. And I really listen to myself, just like I learned to listen to my daughter instead of labeling myself. Like, you know, guilt or shame, that is a refusal to be intimate with what is actually happening.
I last week, I guess, I was walking outside with my dog, and usually when I walk, I go into the forest, and then I talk to myself, you know, like say stuff to myself. And this is my, you know, my sacred place, the forest we live nearby. And suddenly I was struck by this idea, like, what's the difference between, you know, a crazy person and myself, you know? And I mean, you know, I am like, but I know I'm good, I'm all right, I'm all, you know, good in my head, but still we don't have this image of someone who is well, who is good, who is normal, that person should talk to herself. It's like only crazy people do that. You know
Well,
what
good.
I mean?
I'm crazy with you then.
You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't come naturally. You know, it's something like, oh, they do that. You know, like normal people.
Well, all you're doing, I mean, we're talking to ourselves all the time, 24/7 in our heads, right? And so you're just vocalizing it out. So you can actually hear it. It kind of helps you witness it a little bit more. But I guarantee you, everybody that's listening has a voice in their head that is always talking.
That's true.
Right? And that's crazy. That we're listening to that voice all the time, because rarely is that voice really ours. I found in Purejoy, we have a pillar of Purejoy that is about trusting yourself, especially in parenting. And I had so many voices in my head about what I should do, how I should do it. And I just had a whole litany of thoughts that I couldn't trust myself. I mean, people would say, you're letting your daughter get away with stuff and you're letting her do this. And I was just like, they would say, tell her she can't hit. And I would be like, she just did hit me. What do you mean tell her she can't hit? But I had these voices that said, you must stop her and you must quit, you know, da, 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 da. So I wasn't being intimate with, oh my gosh, she just hit me. Now what's going on inside? It always stopped me. right? Before, if I didn't go to all my thoughts, well, that's bad. Now I need to control her. It was always like, woo! And so I started learning. This was when she was really young, and it didn't really hurt that bad. I mean, she was a little one, but she was hitting me. I just learned to just sit down on the floor right where I was and put my hand on my heart and just go, whoa! That just activated a whole volcano inside of here. That one little thing that came toward me. So again, instead of focusing out there, which is crazy, if we want to talk about crazy, to think that she caused this internal thing and so now she can fix it by not hitting. No, she activated my inner world. Right. And in activating my inner world, I got an opportunity to actually hear all those voices, to see all those memories that came up and to be with them and to literally put my hand on my heart and just offer kindness and regulate myself before I looked out and went, oh, I was really trying to push my daughter into something. And she kept saying no. She kept saying no. And I kept pushing and pushing. And she said no. And then finally she hit. And so I tell people I would never want to take away her capacity to hit, because if she was really in danger and someone was coming after her, I wouldn't want her to go, oh, I can't hit. No, I'm not supposed to hit. Right. And I know that sounds crazy to people because we don't want our children to hit. Of course I didn't. But when I finally looked inside and worked with the intensity of instead of just going, don't hit me, right, then I was able to recognize that I had a part in her hitting. And if I was willing to be more conscious of this and recognize that I'm the adult and I don't have to push and push and push and push. If I'm the adult, I have capacity to create and understand and know I'm with a little one. I always use the metaphor of puppies. We don't get mad at them when they pee in the house. I mean, some people do, but mostly we expect it. And we know it's going to take a lot of times putting them out and in and out and in. With children, we don't do that. We think they hit once and they should never hit again. Right. And then we get mad at them and it turns emotional and we have a hitter and then we're embarrassed and all this stuff. It took a lot of time for me to train myself not to push. And when I did, my daughter stopped hitting.
I remember one time I was like, okay, let's look for some evidence. So how do I even know that, I am angry? Or how do I even know that I'm disappointed? Or how do I even know that I'm ashamed? And I was like, let's look for some proof, some evidence. I was like, I don't know. At first it seems silly, like, because I know. And then how do you know? And all I could find was sensations I could feel in my body. And something shifted inside me. I was like, so if every situation could be break down to some, intense sensation in my body, maybe I could just, stay with it, as you were saying, like I just, put my hand on my heart or whatever it feels comfortable. And I just stay with whatever is happening inside. And this is my business, to take care of those sensations. And I leave everyone out of it. And I come back just when I feel that, it's okay. I could tolerate it, like be with it. And it's not killing me or it's not pushing me to act out. But again, it sounds crazy.
Well, it does to the mind, but actually the sensations is the only thing that we can really count on as being real. We can't count on the story actually being real. I finally recognized in my wise old age that none of my stories are true. None of them. My feelings are often not true because I was told that you feel this when you have this certain sensation. But my sensations are actually real. They're what's happening in the moment. So when we can finally get down to the sensation level, we are actually going to be able to be intimate with what is actually happening versus what we think is happening when we go to our thoughts or even to our feelings.
Right. I know that many parents listening, because that was also my case like many years ago, think that, okay, so if I let go of, trying to control what's happening just right in front of me, if I don't use any punishment, if I don't use any reward, like you're gonna get less or more screen time if you do that or that, just stop hitting your brother and you have, 20 minutes more of screen time. So if I don't use punishment, if I don't use rewards, if I don't bribe my children, then what's left?
Well, but you have to ask yourself, why do you need your children to behave? Is it a reflection on you? Is it for them to take care of you? I mean, again, we always have to go deeper. Because I don't judge those behaviors. If you do those behaviors, if that works for you, go for it. I'm not here to tell people how to parent. But I found that when people do use rewards and punishment and all that stuff, they don't feel good inside. They do it and it works, and they might justify it and defend it. They need to learn, but inside they go, ooh, because something in us knows. One of my teachers said, in your heart of hearts, if everybody just takes a moment, puts their hand on their heart, in your heart of hearts, not your mind, would you ever really want another human being to have to change so that you're okay? Really? Would you ever really want to ask that of another human being, to be different, to change so that you are okay? And when I got back to my heart, it was like, well, no, I'm a parent. I want to know my daughter so I can come alongside her to know herself. I didn't want her to know me. And so many parents want our children to know our values and to what we think is good behavior and to do what we want them to do. That's in here. That was for me to know. I decided to parent so that my daughter would know herself. Is that comfortable? No, because my daughter is not like me. We have different tastes. We have different preferences. We respond to stress different. We act different in different situations. We behave differently. So in Purejoy, we work to get enough healthy separation where we can attend to this, own this, love this, and then see that our children, it's like that Khalil Gibran poem. I just read it again. Our children are not our children, right? They don't come here to serve us and to make us feel better. They're not here to make us feel good about ourselves. They're not here to reflect our values. They are their own unique individuals. You have two. They're very unique and different, right? And so when you really get it, that you have this opportunity to create an environment or a garden for your flower, you might have a sunflower and you have a rose. They're going to need different things. But if you get it, that you know how beautiful it is to garden and to feel like you nourished that plant and put it in the sun and gave it the right fertilizer, and then it just blooms. There's nothing like it. So that's what I got clear on, that I needed to put myself in a good garden first and bloom. Right? I needed to attend to this. And then I started recognizing, I had a cactus. As I say, I'm more a sunflower, and my daughter's a cactus. And we needed very different soil. We needed different light. We needed different conditions. But it was my responsibility, I felt, as a parent, to create the soil for her to know herself, to grow. I used to work with at-risk teens. I'll just tell you this real quick. And so many of them would come in, and I would ask them, what did they want in their lives? And they say, I don't know. And I said, well, what do your parents want for you? They would they could tell me the whole list of how their parents wanted them to act, where their parents wanted them to go to school, who their parents wanted them to be. And I said, well, who do you want to be? And it would take them 2 or 3 sessions before they'd be willing to confess the secret lives that they had inside of their dreams and who they wanted to be and how they wanted to be.
That's true.
Yeah.
And still, I mean, let's get practical. So let's say I'm all convinced that, I had to take care of myself, and then I lead my child by, let's say, by being a model, like by showing that what's important, it's, getting to know yourself and to know what you want and, go for it. But then when it comes to a situation when I feel like I'm responsible for my child, let's say health. So if I let them go to bed when they really decide that it's time to go to bed, I know because I'm an adult. I know that they need a certain number of hours of sleep because otherwise I'm gonna be tired and I'm gonna.
Maybe. I don't know. You're
Oh,
just talking a lot of stuff here that you believe.
that's true. That's true.
Maybe.
But I mean, let's presume that, while there is this, consensus about, like number of hours of sleep we need every day. And let's presume that's true, that we really need them.
But that's about you being comfortable. That's about you believing something. That's not being intimate with. If a child decides to not go to sleep and they wake up tired, then you get to be intimate and come alongside them to understand themselves, to understand what happened when they didn't get enough sleep versus you need to do this. I can't let you get to know yourself. I need to protect you from knowing what it's like to not get enough sleep and then to wake up tired. So that's what we're always doing because it's uncomfortable for us. Parents are like, I don't like it when my kid doesn't get enough sleep. They're grouchy, they're mean, and it's like, well, okay, but when are they ever going to have that experience of them knowing? Then you can come alongside and say, did you notice that when you didn't get enough sleep, you were really came in and you didn't want, and you did all of this? Is that cool with you? Is that how you want to do? Or do you want to explore and see what it happens? Because I noticed the night before when you got a lot of sleep, you were really happy in the morning and you enjoyed and you got up and you were ready to go to school. And today, what do you think that has to do? Do you think it has to do with the sleep? Or do you think that, so but I'm saying when we get curious, when it's not uncomfortable for us, meaning that, we know I want to get 8 hours of sleep. I love my 8 hours of sleep. I learned that was really important for me. But my daughter's had to go through all kinds of cycles. She slept in late, then she didn't, and then she's been up. And now she tells me, she's 22 now, and she tells me about what happens when she doesn't get enough sleep. Right. So she knows herself. She knows she gets hangry. She talks about when she's hungry and she's tired. And she knows it. And her friends know it. And they're like, feed her, feed her. But she'll tell me that, Mom, I'm getting hangry. Instead of like, Megan, you need to eat. You get like this, or me making sure she never gets to hangry, so she eats. So one of the things you said, we all say, well, I can't let my kid, and that one really got me. I started looking at it. It's like, who am I to think that I can let someone do something or not do something? I mean, it's really a power seat. It's a power over. I can't let my kid find out who they are. I can't let my kid have an experience that might enlighten them, that might support them in knowing who they are. Right. So then we start to do that, and we do it all in the name of rationale, because I'm the good parent, I'm responsible, and I can't let them have that experience because it's too this. So I started questioning that too. It's like, well, who am I to let her? Now I can be a really good, I don't just like throw my hands up and people say, well, then you just go, well, just do whatever you want. That's the other side. It's either I rescue them and make sure that I control their experience completely, or I throw my hands up and I go, well, I'll just let you eat all the candy in the bag and forget it. Those are two extremes. I started recognizing that my daughter was a new being. She was innocent, as I say. She was young. She came to a planet where there was a million different choices, at least in America, you go in a grocery store and there's 800 of everything, right? And she's going right, all over the place. So I got very clear. I wasn't the mandator of what she could have or not have. And I tell people this story. It's in America, we have a store called Toys R Us. And it's just this huge warehouse filled with toys. And parents, of course, there's many meltdowns in Toys R Us or Target in the States, right? And I said, but you're the one that took your 2-year-old into that place. Okay. So imagine taking a 2-year-old into a warehouse filled with toys. What do you think they think?
I want them all.
This whole place is for me because they're 2. They don't know that they're only supposed to pick one thing and this and they're just like, oh, they go crazy and they grab this and they grab that and they grab this and they grab that. Of course they do. So I teach parents, it's like, well, you have to get really clear on, first, you're walking them in there. Second, you have to be clear on what you're offering them. So you can let them know, we're going to go into this big store. There's going to be tons of toys. And I'm offering to get you one. Now you can look around. My daughter would go around the Hello Kitty counter for hours. She touched everything. She saw everything. It was so beautiful. But she always knew that I was offering. She could want everything because she did. But I was only offering one toy. So that's my healthy boundary, right? And so when I could keep that, then my daughter could still have feelings about it. She might cry, you want everything. I know you do. God, of course you do. And I'm offering one. And then if I noticed that my child, it was too overwhelming, she wasn't able to go through with that, I didn't get mad at her. I just knew she wasn't ready to go into a full warehouse filled with toys and only get one. So again, you can see how I'm always taking the responsibility versus I'm letting her throw a fit, or I'm letting her this or letting her. I just always got clear my personal boundaries instead of binding her like, you can't want that, you can't do that. I would say, I'm offering this. So then she would have limits and boundaries. I tell parents I believe in limits and boundaries, but not limiting and binding my child so that I'm okay. I have them. So then my daughter runs into them, but they're healthy. They're not emotional. They're not shaming. They're not punishing. They're like, of course you want every toy in here. Aren't they beautiful? And I'm offering you one today.
I love that about you, that you first, that you talk about boundaries, our boundaries for ourselves. So we get clear for ourselves what we are offering. And I admire your capability to get clear about with yourself about your boundary. My issue is that in the world where there's so many different ways of living, so many different decisions made by so many different individuals, I'm like, how do I know this is the good boundary for me? I mean, what's the difference between one toy and two toys? Is it too much? Is it not enough? Is it, what about three toys?
I'll tell you my factor, because it sounds like it's easy, but I've been practicing for a really long time. The way I know that I'm holding a healthy boundary for me is I would say 90% of the time feel selfish, abandoning, and rejecting of my child. That's how I know I'm setting a healthy boundary, because I don't want to feel those
That's
things.
horrible to feel.
No, it is that. That's the whole thing. When you recognize it's not horrible to feel, like
Yeah.
it's not dangerous to feel selfish, but we were trained to overgive because we didn't want our children to feel abandoned or rejected or unsupported. So we're constantly, overgiving, and then we get mad at them because then they take, and then we call them entitled, we call them greedy. So I recognize that I was told I was a selfish person all the time in my life. So I was always overgiving because I didn't want to be selfish. So I recognized I had to feel selfish. It doesn't mean I am selfish when I take care of myself. But every time, because I would give my daughter everything. She asked for things. And of course, I love her and I want to give her things. And then I asked myself, I was like, okay, well, wait a minute. What do I really want to offer? And I'll say, well, I really only want to offer, let's say, $100 versus $1,000. I'll get that, right? And then I'll start to feel selfish and abandoning her. Oh, she's going to feel abandoned and rejected because where is she going to get that money? And I should give it to her. But really, I only want to give her $100 because I want to buy that new thing for me over here. I want to take care of me too. But it gets all confused because I have it and I can. And so why don't I? So then I start to feel selfish, abandoning, and rejecting. And she may feel rejected or abandoned. They're just feelings.
So it's interesting because every time we feel bad, we think that, oh, this is not a good sign, And what you are saying is, if I feel uncomfortable and selfish and, mean, this is the good sign that I'm doing a good job on getting clear about my own boundary. And
for me, it was that way, and it still is. it's just an indicator because that's so conditioned. We were personally, for me and my culture in the West, in America, I was trained to take care of people. I was trained to love others, take care of others, to give to others, and to be kind to others. But my mother never taught me how to be effectively selfish. She never taught me how to love myself, how to care for myself, how to be kind to myself. It was always about the other. So of course I learned to purchase love by being kind, by being loving, and I had to get very sneaky and secretive about how I took care of myself. I always cut the cake so I could make sure I got the good piece, but I would act like I was, taking care of everybody else and giving them the best piece. Well, that's really sneaky behavior. So when I recognize, oh, I got to start here. I got to be effectively selfish. And that means being honest with myself, being integral. Yes, I could give my daughter. I'll give you a great example. I've used this one. I haven't used it in a while, but when my daughter was 16, she wanted a 4Runner, a car. And it's like a $30,000 car, or 38,000, I think it was, right? And we live in a Boulder area. We live in kind of a shishi area, but I'm a single mom and I work. And she says, Mom, I want this 4Runner. It's like, of course you do. All your friends have them and you want to be this. And I was like, what color do you want? I want red. Oh my God, do you want to go see it? You want to go drive one? You want to, play with this? And she's like, yeah. And I said, oh, that is so cool, honey. And I'm willing to offer you $3,000 toward a car. Because that's what I had put back to offer her, right? She was so excited. She was like, really? You'd offer me $3,000? Because I wasn't poo-pooing. I wasn't saying like, we can't afford a 4Runner and that's terrible. And who do you think you are? Or doing the other side, which was say, okay, honey, I'll buy you one and I'll drive a beater car, right? Those would be those two extremes. But instead, I just joined her in her excitement. And I said, and I'm offering you $3,000. And she's like, really? Yeah. And I was like, okay. So we went and looked at them. She found out how much the payment was going to be. She found out how much the insurance was. Probably about 6 weeks later, she came back to me and she goes, Mama, I'm really okay sharing a car. She never asked me for that $3,000. She just got her first car at 21. I gave her that $3,000 then, but she never asked for it. But I set my boundary. I was offering $3,000, but I didn't have to make her wrong or bad for her desire and what she wanted. And so that's kind of an example. But yeah, I had to feel a little selfish rejecting because, of course, I wanted to buy that car for her so she could fit in and be, whatever. Of course, I had all those.
That's difficult to do. I mean, we were raised the same way here. And I mean, we always had to think about other people, what they would think, how they would feel because we do something or we don't do something. How would we look in other people's eyes? Always, other people oriented. So it's very hard to suddenly change this perspective and think about ourselves first and then about like other people. Where do you find, I don't know, courage, bravery, strength to begin, this journey?
Well, I didn't really like myself because I was overgiving and then I was blaming. As I said, I thought she was entitled and rude and selfish. And I would hear myself talk about another human being. And I didn't like how I felt. It was like, because it was really, I was the one, again, everything for me came down to, if I didn't like the relationship that was going on, I started here. It wasn't that she didn't have a part or anybody else, but I would always start here. And I would much rather be in the giver role than the receiver. It's a much safer role for me, is to be the one that always gives and is always generous, because I was raised that way, and be kind and loving and people will like you. It was really challenging for me to say, well, that's really one-sided. And what it created was then my daughter had to be the selfish one. She had to be the greedy one. She had to be the entitled one. So somebody has to hold the location if you're only living one-sided. Right? And that was really painful to witness because I didn't want her to have to, she's very generous. She's very kind. She's very loving when she has that capacity and that space to be that. I was just so engulfing her with my need to be the best mother, to be so loving, to be so kind, so generous, that she had to hold that other polarity. So for me, there was a lot of suffering. There was a lot of pain. That's what always for me activates me to try something different. If you're not in enough pain and suffering, and if you still believe your stories and feel that you're righteous and you can be okay with it, keep going. But probably people that are watching this are coming because they have a place of pain. They know that something's not totally right. They don't know what. They know that they don't feel really like settled in themselves and in their parenting. That's why they're coming here. So I kept going back to that place. I wanted to love here. I wanted, and I don't know that was the best thing for my daughter. I don't know, you know, she's 22, she's doing great, but I don't know, maybe she needed a lot of different things from me, but I knew what I wanted to give her. And I wanted to give her the best of me.
I recognize myself when you say that, you know, when we find that our children are selfish, you know, or I don't know, they are not generous. Usually I'm like, oh, that's because I didn't own that in myself. I had to be, you know, selfish in that situation, and I had to put some boundaries for myself. And then I wanted to be overgiving or over generous. And then they have to be that other side of me that I don't like, or I don't want to see in myself, or, you know, I'm like, no, I'm not that.
Exactly. And so I like to try to tell people to, you know, see anything that you don't like in yourself or in your child, you probably don't like it in yourself. Anything that you love in your child, you probably love in yourself. So for me, I started working on the things that I didn't like in my child. Like she's a no girl. She says no all the time. And I didn't like that because I'm a yes girl. So I started working on, why am I afraid to say no? Why am I afraid to only offer what I want to offer? What am I afraid is going to happen? And I was afraid I would lose love. You know, I was purchasing love from the other by trying to be overly generous.
How often do you practice, Leslie?
It goes in and out. You know, I try to do my safe seat. Like we just did a 30-day sacred seat practice, and I laughed because I went back and did it for 30 days and it was so powerful. So, you know, I fall off and whatever. So I would say my practice more is in living. You know, my daughter's 22 at this point. So my practice is in living and being intimate with what comes up.
Do you remember?
I can.
Do you remember the time when you felt that, you know, it's in there, that it's in you, you know, when you start a new practice, and at the beginning it just, you know, repeat and repeat and repeat, and there's like nothing going on, and then one day you feel like, okay, I feel a shift inside me.
Yes.
Remember this moment for yourself?
I do, you know, and I tell people sometimes it takes up to 2 years. I mean, because we're so trained to go out and go out and go out. So I call it little baby steps. People are welcome to go to my website, purejoyparenting.com, and they can get a free 5-day safe seat process to start. But I found that had to be the first number one commitment, was to, even if it was just for 5 minutes a day, was going back in or starting to turn my attention every time my daughter misbehaved outside, was to pause and start to just even recognize what was going on in here, even if I didn't work with it. It's just like you said, that my daughter, when she slammed the door, I had lots of sensations, right? So instead of running to that door and open it and saying, you don't respect me or whatever, I would practice just first recognizing all those sensations that were going on. And I would just practice. Very first step, baby step, was number one, was to always turn back in here when I wanted to go out there and control her. You just practice that baby step, but you have to commit to it. It's like saving money. You know, you can't be a millionaire if you don't save money or if you don't invest it, right? We all think we want to be the best conscious parent or save that money, but you have to take a baby step. And the baby step for me was turning inward instead of focusing outward, turning inward. 1 out of 10 times.
That's true, because so often we get something intellectually and then we think, okay, so, you know, okay, well, my life is going to change because I get it. But then if you don't do anything with it, like if you don't take this baby step in your day, like every day, and do something with it, when
Yeah.
it just evaporates, I mean, you see
Yeah.
no result in your life.
Yeah, I have a teacher that, he works with money, and he says, how many people want to be, independently wealthy? And he'll say, everybody in the whole room will raise their hand. And he says, how many people put money away every month? 5, raise their hand or whatever. So we can have this great desire and this wish and read more and think more and get mad at the world for not making us rich or good parents or whatever. But you literally, for me at least, it had to get practical. I had to be willing to give myself, and don't think of it that way, instead of a discipline. It was a discipline to love me. My safe seat was for me. So I could start to meet the parts of myself that I had repressed and thought were wrong or bad. So it was a gift for me. It wasn't really just, drudgery. It was like these 30 days. It's like, oh, I get to get up first thing out of my bed, just pop into my seat in 5 minutes. That's all it took. But man, my heart loves it.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm gonna put in the notes all the links of your website and your social media accounts. Is there something else you'd like to add where people can find you, or
That's the main thing. They can find me at Purejoy. I'm getting ready to do a Purejoy coach training, so I train other people to be coaches. So that's exciting. If anybody's interested, they can find that on my website. So I try to. It's a personal as well as a professional training. So it's 8 months of really being steeped in this. And it will profoundly change your life because you have to practice in there. So I just support people in finding containers like the 30-day, where you actually have support to practice, because our conditioning is pretty strong and pervasive.
a friend of mine did the coaching Leslie's talking about, and she was like, it was, so I got all this knowledge, but what she appreciated the most is that she got all this, like she called personal therapy, because she went through so many processes herself as a person, as a mom, as a woman, and she was thrilled. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. And then there's all kinds, there's blog, there's podcasts, there's all kinds of fun free offerings if people want to just check it out.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're so welcome. And I always love talking to you, of course. And I love your being. And thank you for inviting me, love.
Thank you.